All right, so we've explained the concept of our inner world and our outer world. And now we start recognizing that how we respond, how we engage the world is really powerful. So what I want to do is many of you have heard in the past, I've talked about the three levels. The three levels are different forms of reaction of the ways we respond, of how we think and how we power that up and what we release. I just want to dive into a little bit about this so you can start looking at yourself and you can say, I wonder what I do. I wonder how often I'm responding in certain ways, just to bring a bit of a reference point so that you can kind of consider this and you can become more self-aware. So I've called this the levels, and I'm changing that a little bit because I feel like level 1, level 2, level 3 can bring a little bit of unclarity. Like, you always have to start at level 1 and then you graduate to level 3, or you have to go through some kind of progression. And I don't really mean that. So for those of you that know my levels, I want to now start looking at them in a little bit of a different way, to start identifying with what they are, not necessarily just a generic title. So the 3 R's, or the levels, is now looking at the balance of what they mean. So level 1 would be more of a reactive state where we would react. Level 2 would be an area that we reflect. And level 3 would be an area that you respond. So the goal is generally that people would start, or horses would start, in a more reactive place. We're defensive, we're guarded, we don't have a lot of skills on our inner world. Therefore, we're very protective in our outer world. So for horses, they're scared and nervous, so they buck or they rear. For people, you're anxious and fearful. You don't want to be put into a place where you're being judged, so you get very defensive and guarded, and you push people away, or you run away from stuff, or you attack and you're aggressive. And we would say that when we're in a level 1 state, we are very reactive. It's like, oh my goodness, we all of a sudden get set off, or people we know all of a sudden get set off. So there's a commonality between people and horses here. Reflective would be a space where you're able to slow things down and think. And to respond means you are choosing how you react. This is becoming aware of our inner world. So now let's go through each of those with a little bit more thoroughness. And this is reacting. Reacting is, I just kind of love this, because reacting is boom. It's like everything goes everywhere. We're almost out of control of ourselves. So reaction is also level 1. So what does it look like when a human is in a reactive state? Well, what happens is, emotionally and personally, you define life. Okay, so you are looking at things in a more reactive state. You think when someone does something, they're personally attacking you, or they're trying to judge you, or they want to put you down. Your interpretations immediately create a judgment of what someone's doing. So we don't get to a place where we're good listeners because we're putting on what we think they meant. Past pains direct future interactions. Most of the time when we're in a reactive state, we're protecting ourselves so what happened back there doesn't happen again. So this is really hard to draw out a different future or build new relationships, because we keep guarding ourselves from what happened back there. Maybe what happened back there was necessary and you needed to protect yourself, but that doesn't mean it's going to always be the same. But if we're always looking backwards and guarding ourselves from past pains, we're always writing a future that will be similar to our past. So it keeps revolving us backwards, not forwards. Interprets energies negatively. Most of the time, anything happens and we think immediately someone's judging us, or someone is being attacking, or we have to guard ourselves, or they are putting us down. We're quick to think negatively about scenarios. That's not going to work out because it hasn't worked out. And we end up acting like this little porcupine. I love this picture because we're prickly, but we're also upset. He's quite upset. He's got his arms crossed and he's pouting about something. He's very prickly, and that is what it ends up feeling like when a person's in a reactive state. Reflection is entirely that. It is about being able to reflect on what's going on. Level 2 is a place where we get to calm everything down. So I encourage you to also associate reflection to pause. It's the ability to not necessarily make decisions. It's the ability to just get to a place where we can become aware. So reflection, or level 2, is a place where we're actually becoming body aware, and we're starting to get our systems ready to step into level 3. All right, so understanding what reflection is, and this is just a great quote, and it says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So Viktor Frankl said this, and honestly, this is just so embodies the idea of what this second level or this place of reflection is really embodying. My goal is to increase the space between response and reaction, or stimulus and response. In our situation, we're talking about the difference between reacting and responding, that I'm actively aware of what I'm doing versus I'm reacting because of my guarded past. If I can start increasing the space between those, I can start choosing how I respond. Now, there's some things we need to do, or what I've done for myself, that have been super helpful. We see in this situation, this horse is definitely reacting. He's pretty scared of this situation. The only way he can do a better job is if I listen to him, but I also am offering him a different deal. When he responds or reacts like this, how am I in my effects? Am I presenting an energy that is allowing him to feel a better deal? The more often we're training pause in ourselves, the more skills we build around the pause or this reflective state or level 2, the more ability we will have to change the world around us. So I have become to understand that moving from level 1 to level 3, or moving from reaction to responsiveness, it is absolutely imperative that we start building skills around the pause if we want the world around us to feel a change or become different. And now we are into relational horsemanship at its finest. I love this part. This is not the easiest part, but it is the thing that brings the greatest blessing and joy into horsemanship and life. And this is getting to a place where I am free to respond how I choose. I do not react to the world, but I respond to it. So level 3, or response, is the place we are trying to bring ourselves to, where we become free from the world's judgments of ourselves. We are now fully aware of what's going on inside us, and we choose more and more how to interact with life. We walk in what brings us blessings. We think our mind in a way that causes awareness. And I just want to take you through what that looks like, what it means for people and for horses. And the beautiful part about this is when you live in a responsive state, this is the only thing I have found that brings out the beauty and joy in horses, because horses are directly connected to the energy that's given off when we are in that state. They feel safe, they feel comfortable, their defensive muscles turn off, and they can use their bodies in beautiful ways. So again, what happens in our inner world, the proactivity of what's happening in our inner world, is really what is consumed inside of this idea of response, or level 3. And for relational horsemanship to express itself in its finest way, we now need to talk about what does it mean to live inside of a responsive state, because at its essence, that is what allows horses to move in their freest, most beautiful form. And I just love that. We sort out the insides and then we are granted the outsides. Instead of feeling like we need to submit or make things listen, we can now free things to be beautiful. Whether it's relationships with people or horses, they turn into sweet beauty instead of confined dominance. Relational horsemanship premises itself on that. Now let's talk about what skills we must develop to live inside of a responsive state so that we can free those relationships that we live within. The choice of response. And I like to call the choice of response this very thing, because when you are talking about response, it is an active decision you're making. It is not something that just flares out of you. You have to work at deciding and choosing to do that. It's a very beautiful state. I mindfully choose my responses. So I am very aware. I have paused and I have consciously decided how I want to interact. The question is how I'm going to interact in this moment going to bring about blessing or negativity? Is it going to make something feel more comfortable? Is it going to allow me to feel excellent in my life? Or is it going to make me feel defensive and guarded? I am now choosing how I want to respond.